there was something that I wrote about this past week on LinkedIn as well. After Andrew Karpathy's auto research came out, and then today we're discussing in the afternoon as well. And then he writes something that is, like very very interesting to say the least. I'll just like share my screen, and Ashutosh can probably put it back here later. Um, so what it's saying is that so if we see what is written, one day frontier AI research used to be done by meat computers. In between eating, sleeping, having other fun, and synchronizing once in a while using sound wave interconnect in rituals of group meeting. That era is long gone. Research is now entirely the domain of autonomous swarms of AI agents running across computer clusters, megastructures in the skies. The agents claim that we are now in the 10,205th generation of the code base. In any case, no one could tell if that's right or wrong, as the code is now a self modifying binary that has grown beyond human comprehension. This repo is the story of how it all began. Karpathy, March 2026. What do you have to
My
say about this?
God, so dystopian, so dystopian.
I mean, like, in some sense, it makes a lot
But
of sense.
I think the way I interpret this is there was a world like human ambition expands to fill the technology we have, right?
Yeah,
uh, when before we had ships, we were okay with kind of whatever village or whatever part of the earth we were born in,
yeah,
and we had ships and we started exploring continents. Then air travel came along, right? And the world became a smaller and smaller village. Bullet trains, right? If you look at every piece of technology, the human ambition expands to fill it. People were okay with being kind of knowing a certain very small segment of like even skills, right? Like for example, the labor class in the industrial economy was happy with this limited life of, all right, I need to move this, my job is to move this box from place A to place B, and as long as it gives me enough money to have a life, have a wife, know and have children and have a house, like basic necessities, it was fulfilling. So I think the whole idea of human fulfillment is contextual to the ambition that the human civilization has as a whole. And it's just that the technology we have is at a very critical moment in human growth where, um, just like program is, right? Like the product we have right now is, there's a huge gap between the product we have right now and the ambition we have is the same thing. The product we have, the workforce we have, the kind of life we have, and the vision that AI is showing now the gap is widened, and eventually all of these things will upgrade, just like the hopefully the program is product will upgrade to match the vision. It's just the example I keep on giving is the pot is on the stove, the water, the milk, the chia, the garlic is all there. It's just a
yeah.
matter of when the pot will boil.
Yeah, I think makes a lot of sense. But then I think all of these are just mental models of how we can probably think about things, and then because it's the frontier, so there is no blueprint of how this is going to unfold, and obviously for us as people, it just needs few frames or few mental models to wrap our head around patterns that we are comfortable with. Obviously, we know that that is not the pattern that's going to repeat, but then some frame for us to even just take the next step. But I think. Uh, like the discussion that we're having in the afternoon, right? About how an organization now is just a contextual application or contextual agent, and actually everything probably could be brought down into like a bunch of workflows, and there are only some critical decisions being made. Uh, I think the bigger block over here is that with previous technological advancements, things were a bit. gradual, like obviously that there was some radical changes as well, but then the speed of this movement is a lot more, in which a lot of the frames, let's say the organization as a frame that we have right now, is getting disrupted so fast that we need some totally different frames of looking at how to generate business, how to generate value, and how to go about building things, right? So I think, and research, definitely, because let's say, how is research happening? There is some like previous knowledge that is that is being taken, literature review is happening, what is happening at the cutting edge is happening, and then we collect some data, and there is some research, like experiments that is happening, and then new knowledge is getting created, right? This is the technically the process of research, and there is no good reason why this cannot be done by AI agents at a scale and a lot more detail than what human beings are able to. Initially I felt that the framing of meat computers is very harsh, uh, but somehow it makes sense. But somehow it
No,
makes
I
sense.
don't like it.
No.
I don't like it. The pop-up kept on coming, right? Allow once, allow always, allow once, allow always. And I feel like it's designed in that way to annoy you into pressing allow always.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Even when you connect Claude to the Chrome, right? It's like allow once for this domain, allow once for this action. And then there's this very beautiful always allow button. After
Yeah.
5 or 6 presses, you're like, let me just press the always allow, right? And this always allow we'll come back to this conversation in the future.
Mhm.
Is I don't know, that always allow thing creeps me out,
Mhm.
and that is why when I'm building my like AI agents, I always have something at the top, is you are not going to access any communication channels, um, both ingest and outgest.
Mhm.
And what I've done with my agents is I have a private Notion workspace,
Yeah.
and I clearly tell Claude,
Mhm.
everything you need is this in this private Notion workspace.
Yeah.
If I want you to know something, I will put it in this. I'll create a doc in this workspace and point you to it.
Mhm.
But if there's anything in my human communication channels, which is email, Slack, calendar,
Yeah.
WhatsApp, I will either send you a screenshot of the conversation I want you to know the context of,
Yeah.
or I will tell you myself. I'll copy paste things into myself. So there's really only three ingests for Claude for me, which is screenshots, the messages I send it manually, and a private Notion workspace, which is kind of sandboxed from everything that Claude should not know, right?
Yeah.
That gives me I think that makes me feel good,
Mhm.
because there was one moment before. So the reason I created this sandbox and these constitutional guardrails for Claude was I was just experimenting with Claude, where I was trying to teach it Neplish,
Okay.
right? Like, can it
Yeah.
speak
Yeah.
in my tone, in the way we talk? We don't use pure English. We don't type in Nepali. We romanize a few things, but we don't romanize everything, right? So I was just seeing if it could replicate my voice, and there was just something that I wanted to send to Rashmita, and I hadn't set up those guardrails, and
Yeah.
then it just created something, and I don't know, I just sent it. The message was okay. I just sent it, and
Yeah.
then I checked Slack to see what Rashmita had read, and,
Yeah.
and and the message was itself was okay, but it was sent via Claude,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And then that just creeped me out, because if Rashmita start like obviously the message is mine, right? The idea is mine.
Yeah.
uh, Slack, I mean, Claude was just a formatting layer. It was just a
Yeah.
template on top of my thought.
Yeah.
But imagine how it if I start doing that at scale. If
Mhm.
I give Claude direct access to my communication channel, to send messages to people, it would creep you out, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because because then it becomes not just a formatting layer. You might feel that it's also doing the thought layer.
Yeah. No, I think like for communications and for these kind of applications, I don't think this is probably how I would want to apply as well. But let's say, for example, build the best Claude automation course for bankers, for example, I'm just like making stuff out on the fly.
Mm-hmm.
uh, we're leaving that for a research setup, and it running through the night, and creating a course that we can validate next day to see if this is the right thing we can put or not. I think the power there is what he's trying to get to.
No,
And
I get it, but I think where I don't like the framing of meat computer. That's where we
yeah,
started the
yeah,
conversation, right? Where I don't like the framing of meat computers is a lot of people will click on always allow.
yeah,
I had the awareness of AI, enough awareness of AI to know that always allow has consequences, right? That which I wouldn't be able to control. I saw when I made that first mistake of like, being careless and just enabling a cloud to autonomously send a message. I had enough awareness of AI to know that this could go wrong in the future. Most people won't. That's one aspect of this. Another is, what you're saying is, and this is something that I've been putting a lot of thought to. Everybody talks about skills, right? But I am trying to divide skills into few different parts. One is a pure skill, which does not require any context into your organization, who you are. It should not have any of that information. For example, convert this CSV into a pie chart. The input is clear, the output is clear, there's a
yeah,
processing layer. That's a pure skill.
yeah,
There might be some skills that require sending something or creating something in a communication channel, right? Booking a calendar entry, sending a Slack message, sending a WhatsApp message to someone, some sort of communication with a human being. That layer creeps me out. I feel like if there is that layer, you're building something around that layer on cloud. uh, we should have guardrails. That is the maximum guardrail region. And there's a third category of skills. Actually, I would say for the third one would be something simple, a simple skill that does not take long to execute, short running skill, but that requires some context into your organization, some domain knowledge from your organization,
yeah,
right? For example, if it is doing some basic copywriting, it might need access to your messaging document, your brand guidelines, all of that. But that's only a very small compartmentalized domain knowledge. It does not require the skill to load up your entire knowledge base, right? And then what you said, the fourth one is like deep research, is something where it should know everything about your organization. Ideally, it should know about your vision, mission, what you're trying to achieve, why you're doing that research, what is the context, what is the org structure, something like that. uh, so I think this clarity is finally like coming to my head, is where is skill, where is knowledge, where is wisdom.
mhm,
Some skills can be run independently, some require knowledge, very small layer of your organization knowledge, some require a wider net of your knowledge, and over time this is what builds wisdom. uh, so yeah, it's just, I'm just trying to build a mental framework of how,
yeah,
like, the access layers, and yeah, the messaging layer creeps me out. I just feel that if I were to teach a course on AI to people, I would start with this governance layer, and with this frame that I just talked about. Is pure skills fine, start using cloud, no worries, right? If you want to use just chat gpt for personal work, that's also fine, do all that. But as soon as you start giving it organizational knowledge, putting organizational knowledge into it, now that it's not a pure skill, even if you're putting fragments of organizational knowledge into chat gpt or Claude, what are the guardrails if you're doing that? If you're asking Claude to ingest data from your communication channels, or do an action, send a message to someone, do some outreach, whatever. If you're sending, Claude is acting on your behalf, what are the guardrails? So I am just thinking out loud around, like, how can I think of guardrails at different layers, and where guardrails are necessary. Even if you talk about the CSV, the pure skill, even there you're putting organizational knowledge, right? So the skill itself does not need access to organizational knowledge, but you're still putting organizational knowledge through the data itself. So all across all four layers, Claude does not need to access all your. If Claude is accessing your entire organization's knowledge base when acting as a pure skill, then you have not, one, you're wasting tokens. Two, you're just giving it way too much authority over your
Yeah.
organization.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just trying to be, this is where I'm at with my relationship with Claude is. I even created an authority spectrum, because as over time I started asking, talking with Claude, it started questioning me on the organization mission and vision, and I was like, this is not done. Yeah, so I was talking about four types of skills: pure skills
Yeah.
that don't need any context into your organization, skills that access messaging, your messaging apps,
Yeah.
and that send messaging or communication apps that send or receive messages from your communication channels,
Yeah.
could be email, Slack, whatever.
Yeah.
Then third one being skills that require only a slice of your organizational knowledge, and then as you mentioned, deep research that might require the
Yeah.
full context of your organization, right? And then what
Yeah.
are the guardrails for each layer? And there's one more
Mhm.
layer that requires that, where I'm thinking about guardrails, which is I don't know if it's a name that has already been discovered, but I call it knowledge compression, right?
Okay.
For example, and this came to me when I was trying to translate a huge document in English to Nepali. And
Mhm.
the way I was doing it was, it started with a terrible translation, and then I started giving it examples of where the translation was inaccurate. I kept on giving
Yeah.
Claude the examples of where it was inaccurate, and then the file became very long, kind of.
Yeah.
And I told Claude to keep a log of the changes I was asking it to make, right? just just so that for me to look at patterns later. And then I saw that the file was getting pretty huge, and I had also asked Claude to look at that file before making new translations so that I could make the system better. And then
Yeah.
after a certain time, that file started looking big, and I said, why don't you compress these specific examples into more generalizable principles and apply it to the entire translation? And it generated a crazy good translation in one pass, right? So the fact that it was able to take specific examples, feedback from me as a human, generalize those, find the patterns in those corrections, find a generalized principle that generated something that did not need those corrections,
Yeah.
right? If you build that into a compounding loop, every business is under threat, right? It's just insane. So what are the, what how do we become careful? Because I mentioned, and that's why it just became too smart and started questioning my vision and mission and my own guiding principles, right? So that's why I built the authority gradient, where I said, you are not to question my vision and mission, because my vision is to expand human confidence and ambition. As an LLM, you do not understand these concepts, right?
Yeah.
And your job is to compound my operational efficiency, not,
Mhm.
and human identity is the domain of humans. Like, that's literally in my prompt.
Okay.